is new. Love has made a place for you where everything is new. Grace has made a place for you where everything is new. Grace has made a place for you where everything is new. Grace has made a place for you where everything is new. Grace has made a place for you where everything is new. Spirit made, grace has made a place for you where everything is new. Spirits made, love has made, grace has made a place for you where everything is new. Spirit made a place for you where everything is new.
Hallo, hört ihr mich? Hört ihr mich?
Ja.
Good morning, good afternoon. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Rishi, and I would like to deeply welcome you on behalf of Buddhists across traditions in collaboration with Plum Village's International LGBTQIA+ Sangha and Rainbow Sangha Ireland and Rainbow Sangha UK. It brings me so much joy to see so many familiar faces and so many new siblings. And as we start, I'd just like to invite everyone to arrive, shed all of the whatever else has happened in the day, and if possible, sink into this kind of warm togetherness of this meeting. I know I, for one, feel so connected and happy in these beautiful spaces with you, beautiful people. So I'm very happy to say that this is the second year that we've come together to honor LGBTQIA+ History Month in the UK, which also coincides with Black History Month in North America. And this year, we're going to celebrate this by having a panel discussion on the topic of, can Buddhism grow inclusive communities? Intersectionality of race, gender, and sexual identity. So this lovingly curated event will explore the role Buddhists and related contemplative practices can play in healing trauma and growing inclusive communities across the intersectionality of race, gender, and sexual preference. We're very lucky to have received offerings, or will receive offerings from BIPOC LGBTQIA+ practitioners, which is a rare and beautiful treat for all of us. And I'm so glad that for the loving hard work of everyone who's put together this amazing event. So before we start, we would just really love to acknowledge the beautiful energy of the teacher of many of us, Thich Nhat Hanh, who has inspired the creation and the kind of flow of energy that is Buddhists across traditions, and also the collaborating Plum Village LGBTQIA+ Sanghas. We invite you, I myself bow to and celebrate his continued thundering through our mindful, loving actions. And it brings me a lot of warmth to know that they are also here through this meeting. We also would love to welcome all of our ancestors, whether that be genetic or spiritual, whose loving collective energy brings us here today. And we also like to honor the earth and the sun that holds us and shines on all of us without discrimination. I also would really love to take some time to orient this session to try and make it as safe and trauma sensitive as possible. Firstly, we just want to make clear, as usual, that every practice and offering that we present today is only an invitation. It's not an obligation. So if any part of it, a meditation or a sharing, feels like it's maybe not what you need right now, feel free absolutely to not practice with it. And even feel free to mute, turn off your camera, lie down, or leave the event if that's what you need to look after yourself and to nourish yourself. That being said, we also would like to practice with the fact that sometimes it's the right thing to be challenged, and that can be the edge of our practice. And if sharings and reflections in the sensitive topics bring us discomfort and dis-ease, perhaps this could be a calling to transform our perceptions. And in that case, we could hold it in kindness and follow our mindful breath. I just also want to flag up that we will not ask anyone who's not a panelist to speak, and there won't be any breakout groups. So I just want to make that clear so there's no social anxiety for the beautiful people who can just sit back and receive this beautiful Dharma rain. We've also shared in the email our intentions in hosting this event and holding this space. And as a reminder, we share the link in the chat. And I'm going to recap a few key points so you'll know the kind of intention of this meeting. So firstly, this is a space open to allies, just to flag that up. However, we will try and make this space as welcoming, caring, and comfortable as possible. And also a space that's an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to investigate deeply and unlearn perhaps conditioned behavior and biases. We also would like to acknowledge that none of us, including the organizers or the panelists, maybe know how to do this perfectly right. And we accept responsibility for any mistakes that might be made. And we commit ourselves to continue to unlearn and learn in order to be more loving and less violent in spaces we curate. We also would like to acknowledge that despite many meetings on the topic, we can't guarantee any space is 100% safe. So we apologize and we've done our best in that respect. Also, we'd like to point out our view that perhaps real safety does not guarantee that there'll be no discomfort. And we need to have difficult conversations and strengthen our relationships and compassion for people's mistakes as we awaken to our own ignorance and seek to apply insight onto it. So please do what is required of you to take care of your body, mind, thoughts, and feelings on this event. And remember that your breath is a refuge of safety that you can return to at any point. We also would just like to say, if at any point something feels wrong or feels too challenging, please feel free to reach out to the tech hosts who are labeled, and we're really keen to assist in whatever way possible. And we also are very much open to feedback. So if anything, especially in this meeting today, causes you harm, please do feed that back to us, and we'll of course treat it confidentially and sensitively. So now that we've done the housekeeping, I'm so excited to start the proceedings. So we are so blessed today to start the evening with a guided meditation and a short talk by our beloved teacher, Br Bao Tang, who is a deep, deep spiritual friend and teacher to mine, and a monastic in Plum village, which is a mindful community that was founded by the great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. After that guided meditation and perhaps some words, we will have a panel discussion, which will be facilitated by our wonderful Nazarene, after which we hope to offer you the opportunity to ask questions, after which we will close with a dedication of merit. We will also have a break to give you guys some space to come back to yourself and stretch. I always feel like I need to stretch in the middle of everything, really. Just a last quick prompt on some technical points on Zoom. I think our wonderful tech wizards will post this in the chat as well if you need to refer to it, but I think it's important that we just address it. So firstly, hopefully you will have noticed that we are recording this event. However, we take very seriously the desire or need for some members to preserve their anonymity. So please use all available mechanisms you need to preserve that. For example, changing your name or turning off your camera during the event. We will also preserve anonymity during the question and answer period by not saying who has asked the question, so don't feel afraid for that. But also, if you would like to, feel free to update your name, the part of the earth you're on, or your pronouns, and that would be welcomed. And also feel free to say hello in the chat if that feels great for you and you would like to do that. We have also muted everyone on Zoom, and we'll close the chat once we start the meditation, but you'll have the opportunity to chat with the technical hosts if you have any issues. And they have tech or Zoom in front of their names. Throughout the session, if you feel called to raise a question for the panelists, then please send it to myself. And I've put hearts in front of my name to make it maybe easier to find me in the list of attendees. Since Buddhists Across Traditions is a BIPOC-centered collective, and we're celebrating Black History Month, and since it's also very rare for BIPOC people to be able to ask questions to BIPOC teachers, we will be prioritizing BIPOC voices in the Q&A. So to support us in prioritizing asking the questions of BIPOC participants, we would ask you to indicate if you are BIPOC with a star before your question, just so that we can filter the questions and make sure that we provide space for those voices preferentially. Also, for accessibility, captioning is on. And if you need help setting up captioning, please reach out to Rahina, who's our chief tech wizard, for support. To also help preserve and manage the energy of our panelists, which we've identified by a heart at the beginning of their name, we ask you to maybe not direct messages in the chat directly to them so they can stay centered and focused. And finally, if there are any technical disruptions, we do have a process in place for this. So please use this opportunity and the energy to breathe, and we will sort it out. I'm so happy now to hand over to my beloved teacher, Brother Bao Tang, also known as Brother Treasure, who will offer a meditation and a short talk before he has to leave to facilitate a monastic retreat. And we're so grateful that in the middle of a monastic retreat, he's taken the time to come, I think from the bookshop by the by the look of his background, to come and nourish us and support us as he always does. So thank you so much. And I would just invite Jack to invite the bell to allow us to come back and to invite us to start. Thank you so much and enjoy the show.
Dear respected Thai Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, dear community, I feel so honored to be invited to come and practice with you this evening. And I'm always happy to see the community coming together and celebrate our existence and celebrate our diversity. And for me, this is an expression of courage to be present, to be different, but to be together, as our topic is about inclusiveness. I know that some of you may have already activity today, so I will not start by meditation directly, because our mind maybe needs some time to settle down. Yeah. So I would like to hang out with you a few minutes before, as I share something. I don't want to call this teachings or Dharma talk. It's just like a sharing. But I would like to share it in a way that you can also feel peace, and you can also slowly stop. You take your time to stop. When you have a response in your minds towards what I say, you just recognize it, smile to it, and breathe. You don't have to struggle with that. Yeah. It's a practice. In Plum Village, mindfulness The first miracle of mindfulness is to be present, to make ourselves present in the present moment. And when we are present, we know what we feel in our body and in our mind. Yeah. So first of all, I would like to invite you to listen to one sound of the bell, and we can listen deeply, not only with our ear, but with our whole cells in our body. Just allow that sound penetrate in every cells of our body. I'm so happy to see many familiar faces here, and I believe that you do so. You see many familiar faces smiling, wonderful. And I'm so happy to see Sister Chanh Dinh is also here with me. What a reunion to be able to meet here. I'm so happy to experience this meeting. Yeah. So talking about inclusiveness, this is a very interesting word, and I have been contemplating this for some times. What does it mean, inclusiveness or inclusivity? In the Buddha's teachings, we know that one of the elements of true love is inclusiveness, upeksha in Sanskrit and upekka in Pali. And we can say inclusiveness is love. It's quite wonderful. So when we feel included, then we feel loved. But at the same time, as our teacher Thai has shared, the left cannot exist without the right, and the right cannot exist without the left. So it means inclusiveness cannot be exist if there is no discrimination. And this is for me very interesting to take a look. As we share, as we know also from Thai, that Plum Village is made of non-Plum Village element. A flower is made of non-flower element. If it is hard to understand, we can put it a little bit down to make it easy. The brownies cake is made of non-brownies cake element, because many of us knows what is the ingredients of this cake. Without these ingredients, then we know there is no the brownies cake. So this is very simple. And then somehow when the brownies cake is manifested, then we can say the brownies cake is not the flour is not about it's not sugar, it is not chocolate, it is not cacao. We are very sure it is not. But when we look deeply, we see that they inter-are. Yeah. So in the world right now, we can see so many things is happening. And we may see that these things are not me, and that things are me. This is one condition. Another condition is this one is me, and this one is also me. And sometimes when something happens in the society, we see that those are not me, and those are not me also, And we start to get confused. Who am I? Yeah. And we start to feel left behind. So sometimes we can feel that exclusion. We feel excluded from something. Yeah. And when we feel that, the first thing we need to do is to accept that there is differences. And once we discover these differences, we can slowly to find the interbeing nature. Yeah. So when we can see the cake is not the flower, and slowly we can look deeply to slowly see that the flower is also the cake, and the cake is also the flower. And this kind of insight, it needs some training. We need to train ourselves. It is not inbuilt in our system. Because our system is to differentiate, and then we judge whether it is safe for us or it is endanger our life. And then we have to respond to that condition, which in Buddhism we call it hatred, aversion, or craving. But with the energy of mindfulness, we can recognize that discrimination, accept that discrimination, and to start to look deeply what is the interbeing nature of it. I really have a lot of respect for those who work with activism to support the movement of inclusiveness, to talk for those who are in minority, to have to generate awareness for the global awareness. And this is very important, and we can generate awareness through 3 actions: through our speech, through our body, and this is the most secret thing, is to our mind. It means through our consciousness. And what we need to do is to speak out, to do something. Those who have access to speak, we speak. Those who have access to do something, we do something. And those who cannot have access to do and does not have access to speak, we can have access to think about it. So we always can contribute to change, especially towards discrimination. And by that collective awakening, collective consciousness, we can make the change growth rapidly. Yeah. So tonight I would like to invite everybody to recognize differences in order to practice inclusiveness, and to embrace differences in order to practice inclusiveness. And then we look deeply into all that differences and find the interbeing nature. With my brothers in the hamlet here, with the monks community, we all wear the same clothes, shave the same head, practice the same precept, but we are all different. I cannot find my identical person in this monastery, and I cannot find anybody has 2 personality in the community. 2 people have the same personality and the same way of thinking. We are all different, but yet we become one. And I think this is something that we can practice, to see all the differences, but we are also one as a human community. And those who have more awareness and more informed, please tell us more. Yeah, I think we need to hear, we need to see, and we need to experience, so that we can help you to think. Yeah. So this is just a short things for me. Yeah, and then we can settle down. So please remember that inclusiveness is love, And when we can recognize the differences and embrace them in the present moment, we know that we have love. And those who feel different today, and you come to this community, and we are all embraced by this community, we know that we are receiving also loved in this community, in this session, being together, smile with each other, being present. Yeah, and that is the Buddha's has shared with us about then don't get caught in sign, don't get caught in differences. The first differences is between me and you. The second differences is between human, animal, plants, and mineral. And the third differences is between living being and non-living being. And the fourth differences is about birth and death. And we don't want to get caught in any of them, but we want to embrace all of them. You and me, we embrace each other. We are different, but we embrace each other. Yeah, human, animal, plants, mineral, we embrace all the differences because we can see ourselves. Also, we are animal, we are also plants, we are also mineral. And this evening, I would like to invite everybody to sit comfortably, breathe, and contemplate on the non-human element inside of us, so that we can embrace what is not human inside of us. I will invite one sound of the bell, and we breathe 3 times. And then after that, I will give you some sentences for us to listen. You don't need to imagine, you don't need to think about it. Just allow your store consciousness tell you what does it mean, that sentence. If your store consciousness does not tell you anything, you just breathe and smile in the present moment. But I believe you may be able to follow what I say. So just feel free to sit and just relax the whole body. Yeah. Breathing in, I enjoy my whole in-breath, the length of my in-breath. Breathing out, I enjoy the length of my out-breath. Enjoying my in-breath, enjoying my out-breath. Breathing in, I recognize clearly that I can see the air element in me. Breathing out, I see clearly the air element in me, and I smile to that element. The air element, smile. Breathing in, I recognize the water element in me, my blood, my tears, etc. Breathing out, I smile to the water element in me. Water, smile. Breathing in, I recognize the air element in me. I recognize the air element outside of me. Breathing out, I smile to the air inside and to the air outside. Breathing in, I see the water element in me. I also see the ocean has also the water element. Breathing out, I smile to the element water in me and the ocean. Water element inside and outside. Smile. So dear friends, thank you very much for being there for me also, and I hope that I can see you again next time. And please excuse me to leave the meeting because I will continue the session with the monastic community tonight. We are different, we are the same. We are beyond different and the same. I think the most important thing is we open our heart for each other and to listen with each other, to exchange our consciousness. And please think, pray um, the best for everyone so that we can have a collective awakening and collective consciousness. Embrace all the suffering that is exist, and suffering is part of our life also. And we grow from compost, we grow from the mud, and with the community supporting each other, listen to each other, and be brave to be different. And this is the most incredible teachings that the Buddha has offered to us. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you so much, Brother Bao Tang, I think, who has now gone back to his monastic duties. I myself was really impressed by how many bells he had around him. I think he was showing off a little bit. But I was also so deeply touched by his talk and his meditation. As I was distracted during the meditation, I noticed that I still was feeling the love coming from him. And that's so special to have a teacher that can do the meditation for me and allow me to slack. I feel very blessed. Our other beloved teacher, Mushim, who wanted to offer a teaching as well, has asked me to convey their apologies. They had a personal circumstance they need to take care of, but hopefully we'll be able to share it maybe at a future event. I don't know about you guys, but I feel finally arrived. I was feeling a bit chaotic this morning. So I'm so thankful for that arrival meditation. And I will now hand over to our beloved Nazarene, who will facilitate the conversation and introduce the panelists.
Thank you so much, Rishi. Beautifully opened. And thank you, Brother Bao Tang. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to welcome all the panelists to facilitate, to join us in this conversation. We're going to shape the conversation through a series of questions. And we'll begin by, I'll invite each of the panelists to say a tiny bit about themselves and to answer the very first question, which will be, we'd love to hear a little bit about what drew you to agreeing to speak on this panel event, and yes, and a little bit about you. So our wonderful panel here today includes Alisa Dennis, who teaches at LA Insight and Spirit Rock, Joelle Simpson, who's an integrative and heart soul-centered psychotherapist whose practice is in London, Melany Zarate, who's from Colombia and who's currently studying at the University of Leeds, and she's part of the organising team of the Racial Justice Network. We also have Brian Kimmel, also known as BK, and BK is an ordained Dharma teacher in the Plum village tradition. And finally, we have sister or sibling Chanh Dinh from an ordained monastic from Plum village. So if we perhaps follow that order for the first question, if you'd like to say a little bit about who you are and what drew you to this event today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So grateful to be with you all today during these next 2 hours. I know people's lives are full and busy, and so I appreciate you all heeding the call of your heart to be with us this morning, this afternoon, this evening. My name is Alisa. My pronouns, although they're not necessarily preferred, are she, her, they, we. I live in the United States on unceded land of the Chumash and the Tongva peoples, otherwise known as Los Angeles, California. You know, when I'm asked to do these introductions, I always feel a little awkward because they're often quite linear. But I really appreciated the guidance and the Dharmet this morning, and just want to just speak to my sense that I feel like I'm a composite of everything I've ever been, and everything my ancestors have ever been. I was born and raised in New York City. I identify as African American, although I have Arawak and Cherokee ancestry as well. I'm a lesbian. I am also married. I'm the daughter of a mother from the Deep South, whose peoples escaped racism and Jim Crow in order to find freedom and peace in their lives. I'm also the daughter of a father from the Caribbean island of Jamaica. And I'm also a daughter of the cosmos, stardust, earth, air, fire, water, ether, as we practiced being with this morning in the guided meditation. I'm a Gemini and a double Scorpio, Venus in Cancer, and I'm a psychologist in private practice here in Los Angeles, where I do somatic work with my clients, supporting them through transitions in their lives, receiving and letting go in their lives. And I am authorized to teach in the Theravadan tradition. That's all that I'll say about me. Other than when I spoke to Rahina a few months ago, when I first met her and she told me about the vision and the activism of Buddhists across traditions, I felt immediate resonance with the mission and the cause. You know, when I think about oppression in all of its various forms, and the ways in which it operates, when I think about the borders around countries, they are real in the physical dimension, but they're also actually illusory. These forces of oppression, of white supremacy, racism, colonialism, mass incarceration, genocide, patriarchy, misogyny, all of these forces of oppression, they operate and perpetuate by dividing and conquering. And when she talked to me about the mission of this organization, I thought, oh, wow, what a beautiful way to come together. What a beautiful way to resist these forces of fragmentation. And I just wanted to be a part of it because it's a part of what I do within my own self, my own inner world, and a part of what I do in the world in terms of my work with other people, healing fragmentation. And so, again, very, very happy to be with you all, to be with the blessing of the Dharma and the blessing of Sangha as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alisa. Joelle, would you like to go next? Maybe unmute.
I'll unmute. I'll just saying that I'd be honored to go next. I'm Joel Simpson. When Rahina invited me to be part of this, it was actually a year ago, to be part of last year's event. And the email began with a hope that there was ease in my breath. No one has ever written an email to me like that. It moved me. And to my dear friends, for about a week or so later, I kept inquiring about the ease in their breath. I'd like you to join me for a moment in just closing your eyes and just turning inwards, everybody that's here, just to check out the quality of ease in your own breath. Just to notice it. And then if you will, just return to the screen again so we can face each other. I wanted to begin with that because I notice some unrest in my breath in this moment. This is an important opportunity. We're coming together to address trauma in relation to race at the intersection of gender and sexuality. And for a number of us, myself included, that has been a very difficult time. And for a number of us across the globe, it continues to be difficult. As much as we have made lots of advances and had lots of pride, and the fact that we're here together today during this month where we're looking at African history and celebrating LGBTQIA people and their contributions to the world, still in many parts of the world, homosexuality is criminalized. Trans people are being killed and abused. Number of people have married because they feel that they cannot have themselves be seen as legitimate in the world. And so to come together to look at how can this practice of Buddhism be of service feels like a very sacred opportunity. Thinking further around this notion of illegitimacy and what brings me to be part of this, this is very much a heart call. I was honored to be asked, and then I quickly said, no, it couldn't possibly be me. I'm not Buddhist, and I'm not. However, I've spent the last 10 years or so devouring various Dharma teachings and attending various Sangha meetings. And then I realized actually that my being here represents so many people who do not wish to be known as Buddhist, yet are very much called to this work, called to this practice, called to this way of attending to life. And so many of us have been wounded through our cultures, through our religious upbringings that haven't been able to let go of the colonial baggage and hang-ups that have denied us our birthright to be exactly who we are. So I come to this space to explore how Buddhism can grow inclusive communities with my whole heart. And that's probably plenty for this moment.
Thank you so much, Joel. Melanie, would you like to be next?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melanie. It is very important for me to be here today for many reasons. One of them being because I represent a voice from the global south, and also a young person that is heavily involved in climate activism regarding land rights of indigenous peoples in many different parts of the world. And so in my team of young people, half of us are queer and a number of us are BIPOC identifying as well. And it is really important to understand how Buddhism can help ease suffering. For us, the people who are called to put our bodies in the line to defend land, water, and spirit. And it is my calling to continue doing this work for a really long time. Therefore, I need a practice that can take me a long way, not just take me for a week or two. So I acknowledge the radicalism of Buddhism, how beautifully complex and deep it is. And I am here because I've made the commitment to realizing it flourishing in me and helping flourishing in others. Also, I want to talk about how queerness is a resistance and acknowledging that living in spaces that do not necessarily acknowledge or experiences the binary means that we can be so resilient and creative and incredibly beautiful. And that's why it is being targeted and it's being destroyed, because it makes us flourish as a community. And I see queerness as a sign of strength. It is so beautiful to see people express their own complexity. And as a young person, I think it is important to really welcome in intergenerational dialogue right from the start, because all issues are intergenerational. All issues are interracial. And there's a lot of insight coming from the young people because we are organizing quite strongly on different fronts. So I would like to talk about how, from our experience, we've used Buddhism to keep each other safe in these very difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. BK, would you like to go next?
I appreciate not being interrupted. that tears can be welcome in a space that sometimes just a simple biological response I notice is whether it's something that I internalize and I manifest in myself, in my experience in spaces, or it's something a condition that is expected of me in spaces. But I just want to offer part of my being here is, I think, to meet all of you. And already you've shown me parts of myself that maybe I exclude or that I've learned to exclude. And so coming together in this way is a sort of, in our Plum Village, from our teacher, we have the translation of mindfulness. Mindfulness is an appropriated term and made into English. And but the translation that we have is to remember. To come back. When we're all sharing, I feel parts of myself that I put back in the dusty attic somewhere, or in the basement, or wherever I put it, and wherever it's put. And even as something as like introductions is a part of coming together, right? So we come together, we do these introductions, and honestly, I fucking get messed up when I'm asked to introduce myself. So then I think, okay, who am I introducing? What like, what do you want to know? Tell me what to say about myself. And how refreshing that, body just took care of it. Just said, just do this. And then that is your introduction. And so I am I'll say, newly ordained Dharmacharya, a practitioner. Acharya comes from the word that means to practice. So I'm a practitioner in the Plum Village tradition who has been invited to receive the lamp of wisdom. To me, that means a whole great deal because it happened while our teacher was alive, in the incarnation that we knew him as. And it came from particular significance because of my cross-sections of identities, and that I wasn't willing to give up any parts of myself to be welcomed into the community as a Dharma teacher. And I want you to know that. I want you to know that. So I fought for you, and I fought for myself to have a place at the table. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say that it was easy for my community to ask me to receive this practice. And then throughout our teacher's transition in these last 3 weeks, it's been 3 weeks, I felt called forward in a way that I had not felt called forward before. But I knew that it was in me. I knew that the aspiration was in me. So I go by Brian Kimmel-BK, uppercase B, lowercase k. And my Dharma name is Chanh Dinh. True Lotus Concentration is the English transliteration. And it means to be full of the lotus, to be present with the lotus that I am. I don't need to be anybody else's lotus. I'm my own lotus. And I'm a descendant of the spice trade. The Indonesian, Minahasan, and European heritage in me says that, okay, well, I'm a lot of cross cultures, that I could say that my people were part of the building of wealth for Europe. And I was also of the heritage that enslaved people to be able to build the wealth of Europe. And coming in this space, invited for what I think the message came from the UK, I was like, okay, finally, like, then I see US, I'm here from what is called the colonized states of America, and I'm here on this blessed and I feel privileged to be on this unceded land of the Coast Salish in what is known as Seattle, named after a Duwamish Suquamish chief of this region. So this is something that I'm bringing here, and I think maybe this is why I've come. I hope to talk more about that. And I hope we can sing and dance together at some point, if we're not already dancing. Bowing. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, BK. And finally, I'd love to call upon sister, or rather sibling, Chanh Dinh. Would you like to speak now?
With greatest love and respect for our ancestors, for our teacher, and all our teachers. I need a moment. And see my my elder BK. Just need a moment. I think I know that I continually discover why I'm called and drawn. And I've been in the last, I don't know how long, been practicing to allow myself to be reclaimed by ancestors. And as I bow in now, I also want to realize that as I feel my feet, my bare feet on the wood, that I'm bowing in from the land of the Kich Tongva peoples in Yorba Linda, California, which is in Orange County, California. I'm bowing in off campus from the monastery. I ordained in the Plum Village tradition as a monastic the year that Tai had his stroke. Though I've been, I bow in as a child of Filipino immigrants to America and a father who never wanted to come to America. And he would always tell that to me with pride. I never wanted to come here. And so I see that I'm continually arriving for him and my ancestors, all our ancestors. And I'm also feeling that as I bow in, a longing to bow in, integrating, as I also have this form and a space that can allow to call me sibling Chanh Dinh or sister Chanh Dinh, knowing that I've been in also a practice that's informed deeply binary and binding. So I'm a late addition to this panel. And when I received an invitation from Rahina just not too long ago, I was moved by the panelists, and I actually asked, it seems so full and robust. I just want to support. I don't see why I should be added to this panel. Is there a part of me, though, that I realized that might also find I'm still discovering why I'm here, but I also, what calls is that there are parts of me, yes, I wish, I hope I try my best to be in integrity and not compromise, entering into such a deeply gendered and an institution that, when we speak of can Buddhism grow inclusivity, it actually, I had a little recoil when I first read it, and I would be with it, as if Buddhism is something outside of us. I actually, for the longest time also, even still, don't exactly identify as Buddhist, because I don't want to be bound in that, especially with this. And the quality of, so I'm very visual, the question opened up for me, like, can Buddhism open up, grow, not grow inclusive communities, but grow as a inclusive community, right? And I was like, oh yeah, let me dive into that more. And then, of course, Stevie Wonder comes through, you know, and then Love is in Need of Love today just started springing forth. And so this morning in preparation, like that's through my sitting, this song that came through, and I'm just learning more and more how love is in such dire need of love. And as someone, especially on appearance and in form, and with Brother Bao Tang identifying me as, I am a monastic in the Plum Village tradition, and I feel pain of complicity, having been with friends during my lay life and in my monastic life, and the pains of discrimination, the pains of feeling the structure. And I was interested also to learn and see, gosh, yes, how it's taking root, the teachings and the essence are taking root, are being real practices, real ways that are helping folks to come together as community for change. And starting with healing in ourselves. I think I'll stop there. No, bow out. Thank you. This is Sibling Chanh Dinh concentration.
Thank you so much. So wonderful to hear from all of you to open up this space. And we're now going to dive in a bit deeper with a question which I'm going to open to the floor. How can Buddhism and other spiritual practices raise awareness of and also support the healing of intersectional race and queer trauma or pain or suffering? So I leave that open to whoever wants to dive in first.
There's something about perhaps doing as we are doing here, which is to move beyond silence. I think silence is so harmful, and one of the things that came to mind is one of the ethical precepts, as I understand it, is to abstain from harming living things. And if we are silent, we are colluding in the harming of living things, of living beings. So there is a requirement, I think, at the foundation of this practice, that we find our voice. And in finding our voice, we attend to where people are really suffering and where they are wounded. And there is something, I think, very beautiful around what Brother Bao Tang said around not getting caught in the difference. But the difference, I think, also needs to be acknowledged. Because when we come to a Sangha, for example, myself as a Black queer man, I walk into a Sangha and everybody there appears to be heterosexual and married and white. And I have just come from a scenario whereby my white racist colleagues, for example, have sought to be quite homophobic in the way that they respond to me. And then I come into a Sangha, I'm still very much responding to what happened in my workplace. And whilst this isn't happening again at the Sangha, it's important that it's named, that it can feel safe, and that I can also feel included, and I can find a way to include myself. So Audre Lorde, the great Black feminist poet, just to have a go at paraphrasing what she offers. And she says that when we are in service of our vision, it becomes less and less important whether we are actually afraid. And I like that, because let's suppose that our vision is one of compassion, is one of love. Then it's important that we move beyond that part of us that might get it wrong or might mess up somehow, to speak and to attend to each other and where we have been hurt and where we are hurting, and recognizing the problem that is in one of us is in all of us. Kind of taking on this South African principle of Ubuntu. I am because we are. So I cannot be over here attending to my own enlightenment if there is suffering happening over there. So even my own being here is an attempt to move beyond silence, to contribute my own voice in this space and beyond, which will go on the internet. As an opportunity to be in service of love and compassion. That's my offering on at this point.
Thank you so much, Joelle. And I see Melanie, you'd like to go next.
Yeah, I would just like to offer a little bit of my personal experience, but first acknowledge and really just wanting to appreciate Joel and how wonderful your energy is. Thank you so much for your words. It is so beautiful to see you. And I really hope perhaps we could meet, because I'm in the UK. So please let's get in touch. I'm Colombian, where Buddhism is not generally very common. But Buddhism just came into my life, as things just do sometimes. And I have been meditating for a little bit. But the question is, how can Buddhism encourage or facilitate inclusivity? I saw it within myself, but not, and I find it a bit contradictory to be speaking about Buddhism, because Buddhism it's not to be spoken about, it's to be practiced. It's to be fully embraced. And I see that in Joel's contribution of speaking out when harm is being portrayed in a space. When we practice Buddhism, there is freshness, and there is care, and there is love, and there is bravery. And there's no like lingering spaces. There is people present to contribute to compassion, no matter how difficult it may seem. And that's the same thing with us when we are sitting and something happens and we are seeing something really hard. And a really beautiful method can go a long way to keep you going when things are really difficult. But a method is not sufficient. You need a community, and you need nourishment and food. And all the nourishment that your body and mind might need to keep you healthy. And so I think in this case, I would like to say that sometimes I feel like the spiritual community is a bit judgmental of those who do not have the conditions to meditate or be spiritual. And the intersection of those people who can't be spiritual tend to be Black, people of color, and people that are queer. And so if Buddhism is to increase the inclusivity, or people who have been marginalized, like indigenous peoples in different countries, so if our philosophies of compassion are to increase inclusivity, is to really recognize the needs of those communities and ask those communities what they need and really listen to them. And if you don't know how to be inclusive, ask the community. It's very simple. Just go and ask. Not only ask them, but recognize their time with money. Don't expect anyone to give you their emotional energy for free. It's not fair. There's something called emotional, it's called, I think, epistemological exploitation. I read it another day in an article. I was like, wow, what's that? It's when a marginalized community educates those who have oppressed them for a long time. And so if Buddhism, or a community who identifies as Buddhist, wants to go a long way, needs to understand epistemic extractivism, and how a person of color and how a person that is identifying as queer feels when they're in a space when it's not being made with their needs and has not been consulted as to what that means and how it looks like. It feels horrendous. And I have had that happen to myself. And I have spoken up and said I did not feel safe. And I have had responses like, what did you expect? Not, and in this case is brave conversations go a long way. Brave conversations make brave spaces of inclusivity. And this means in every type of space. There were places where I work is in climate activism. This is a very stressful environment where people are doing their best with little resources. And we see it playing one over and over again, that centering whiteness is always not the best idea or strategy. So centering those who have been marginalized and not heard is usually the best option. And that's what we're doing in our space to ensure the safety of all. Because us queer and BIPOC identifying, we want the safety of all people, not just us. We want the safety for all, not just us. We want everyone to be heard, not just some people. And I feel like that's not being acknowledged. If you hear to those who have been marginalized the most, the less heard, you're gonna hear not only their oppression, but their resilience. You're gonna hear their gifts. You're gonna hear their magic. It's not about the pain only. It's also about how incredible these communities are in keeping themselves united despite the challenges that we face. And so there is a lot of ignorance. And how does that ignorance get acknowledged? By doing the work. And how does the work look like? Sometimes the work looks like taking a step back. Sometimes the work looks like grabbing a few books. Sometimes the work looks like signing up to an anti-racist course. Sometimes the work looks like giving space to others to speak more. But I am actually really tired. I'm exhausted. And I know that I shouldn't be doing this. And I need to keep reminding myself that I shouldn't be doing this by myself. So when you see brave work, don't just clap, but ask how you can support instead. That is the best way to contribute to brave work. How does brave work look like? Brave work is usually in the name of those who need it the most. And usually those who need it the most are fighting to save something that is imperative and so needed for everyone. It's a massive contradiction. It's a massive contradiction. How do I see that in my own work? The fact that Indigenous peoples across the world protect 80% of the biodiversity, yet they only represent 5% of the population. Centering their voices means protecting us all. I really hope to see more brave conversations, because I tend to have them and not feel very welcomed in them either. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna stop. And having a mindful practice, not seeking validation from anyone, not expecting the teachers to say what I need them to say, but I approach the Dharma directly. I take the sutras and I read them myself. I interpret the Dharma with my own wisdom because I am worthy of that knowledge. And I believe that I can attain that knowledge because I'm connected to everything and everyone in that knowledge. So if there's anyone here that feels really small because there's people around them that don't really see them as you are, don't worry. When I'm meditating, I'll put an incense stick for you. Don't worry, I'm there for you. No matter where I am, I'll be sitting, hoping that you can vibe of my energy, or we can vibe together, because there's so many of us sitting for all of us, not just a few. I see you, I really do, and I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that you had to carry so much by yourself and that people are not recognizing your pain. I'm really sorry. The last thing I need to say is if spaces are to be safe, let this day be the last when we see someone's pain and not do anything about it and just walk away. The question is, are we making ourselves available? And Buddhism has done that for me. So I think it's possible.
Thank you so much, Melanie, and thank you so much, Joelle, as well. I'm going to move on for the sake of, I wish we had more time, but I'm going to move on to the next question. Should and how can Buddhist practice, groups and structures play a wider role in healing and in building communities and societies towards racial and queer healing and inclusion? What do you think this could include? Who's going to dive in next?
Good morning, everyone, and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.
I think we need to mute that person. I think someone has made an error. I can't see them on the screen, but it looks like our very skillful hosts have dealt with that person who wandered in error. We could hear from someone who hasn't yet spoken on the first question or second.
This is BK bowing in. I'd actually need to see the written question I read again, if that's possible sooner. I appreciate
Absolutely.
the last one being in the chat.
We're going to do that right now. Let's see who does it first, me or yes. So hopefully everybody can see that question now. It does make it a lot easier.
This is BK bowing, and I'll give it a go. I don't always follow by the rules, and so we're going on a question. I'm like, okay, I'll go on the question, and I value this question too, as well. And I think we're already doing it right now in this space, and having like heart-to-heart connections. That's what I've, beyond everything else that happens in a community, in my own community, in the Plum Village communities that I've been a part of. And I say communities because we're not just one community. We're one community, but we're many communities together globally, who communicate in many different languages, subgroups of languages, communicate in different ways, have our own governing processes. So there can be a lot of variations of what Plum Village means, and I think that's especially true depending on where we're practicing. So in my little practice area of the in the unceded Coast Salish lands in the United States on the west coast, we call it the Pacific Northwest, all these directional terms. And so I practice with the mindfulness community of Puget Sound. Puget Sound is the body of water that's out there near the Space Needle, and you can that's what was called the Puget Sound. And so mindfulness community of Puget Sound, we were founded a couple decades ago, and after our teacher Thich Nhat Hanh traveled here. I think he was first traveled here and taught in mid 1980s, 1985. It was his first time here, and it became clear to me that in his passing, particularly, I was meditating, and because of the COVID pandemic, we had not been gathering we have a physical house together that we share with another tradition. So in our teacher's transition, I went to practice there, and we Zoomed our meetings. We had several meetings, and we meet several times a week. And this is already sharing another part of, I guess you say, inclusion or accessibility of having a Zoom space. Like the very fact that I'm able to be speaking in an international group and a cross-cultural group through this technology. I think Zoom, especially during the pandemic, has really transformed what it means to be Sangha. In an age where we probably shouldn't be traveling in the way that we were traveling before the pandemic and during the pandemic, and Zoom and this technology, and I hopefully that these technologies can be more sensitive to culture and ecosystems as we continue as civilizations. I think that is, I was just tapping into the aspirations of what does it mean to be a Sangha and to come together. It means more and more people and all beings will be able to see us, see ourselves, and see each other as a refuge. And something that I've always often struggled, especially in the last 15 years as I have been exploring gender identity, and it's always at the intersection of race and culture, ethnicity, etc. I noticed that, well, yes, there's the binary, and before that there's and heavily ingrained is a patriarchy that is so deep, And how the fuck do you unravel that shit? And I don't mean in basis of like that only certain gender identities are responsible for the patriarchy. The patriarchy is so heavily ingrained that it is, if I could make this assumption, in many of us, if not all of us, we have a piece of this internalized something about patriarchy that, and race is a part of that. Race and exploitation that the systems of race were created for is a part of the patriarchy. So, and Bell Hooks, dear Bell Hooks, wrote about this, and she had I'm not good with always remembering words and names and things. So I know that there's a specific group of words that Bell Hooks used, and someone might have that phrase with all the categories, including patriarchy, that were involved in these systems. So one way, in the very public memorial services, I felt, and I'm going to talk about my teacher's passing because that is up for me. Just the way that his body was cared for and made public, I felt was in stark juxtaposition of how maybe you could say Vietnamese bodies were treated and shown publicly decades ago, when our teacher came to the United States to advocate for the end of a war, of occupation. And so to have our teacher's body really celebrated and honored and part of these very public ceremonies was so healing, because I saw it through the lens of patriarchy. I saw it through the lens of racism. I saw it through the lens, and I'm going to share specifically about gender identity. Something that our teacher did was he fucked with the patriarchy a little bit. I'm sure they wouldn't use the F word, but I'm going to use it because it's, has some power in it. Because here's a male-dominated field. A monk, when you say monk, it meant a male, and it meant a male Sangha. And this goes maybe to the time of the Buddha as well. And so what Thai did was, in Thai, we use that word as an affectionate word for teacher in Vietnamese, and I'm not saying it correctly either, but Thai brought that front and center when we were invited to go to Vietnam and to do alms round, which is it's from the time of the Buddha, when the monks went out to with their open bowls to receive offering. What we did, which was like revolutionary, we with everybody filmed and everything, we did alms round together. We had monks with Thai at the front and nuns right beside, walking together, and lay people were following us as well. That was a revolution, to do that publicly. And so I want to say that context, because that's really important, that we face something in our view, in our perception, and might say, why is that revolutionary? Like, why, like, we're going at the speed of what? Like, So when it came time for me to stand up on and figuring out my own gender identity in these binary spaces that I thought male and female, monk and nun, lay people, and lay people were kind of lumped into something. Our teacher also brought this word back from old Buddhism, a fourfold Sangha: monks, nuns, layman, laywoman, and there's other terms for this, like bhikshuni and etc. So brought that word forward, and then I said, well, that's not enough, because even from the time of the Buddha, there's been more than four categories and more than two genders. So it's obvious. Like, why are we just saying fourfold? So what they did at the memorial, after many years of advocacy, we use this term multifold Sangha. And I heard it, and I was a little taken aback, because I thought, what? I didn't expect to hear it. And I heard it many times written in official letters of multifold Sangha, meaning they're somewhat recognizing that, oh, there's more than just 4 folds in the Sangha according to gender identity. That was a milestone for me. And I knew what they had to do to be able to do that, and they didn't have to do that. And I'm not necessarily giving anybody credit for that. I'm just saying. And it was a practice for me to receive it and to say, oh, actually, yeah, we need to do more of that. We need to do more official, more public, more vocalizing of how we are actually practicing as inclusive Sanghas, and are we practicing what we preach? And it's not perfect, of course not. And all those little things, even though I wasn't celebrating when I heard multifold Sangha, but it was something to practice with. And I thought, oh, am I ready to be a part of a Sangha that recognizes more than 2 genders? For myself, as a multi-gender person, as a gender non-conforming person of multi-heritages, I had to do some deep looking, and I'm still looking at that. And I believe that that is my practice. That's when it becomes my personal BK's practice, to sit with the layers of inclusion that I am capable of inside myself, and how can I stretch myself to include so many people and things that I might neglect because of my own perceptions.
Thank you so much, BK. Thank you. I would love to bring in Alisa into this question too.
Thank you, Nazreen. One of the things that I've been feeling as I listen to Joel and Melanie and Brian is, one of the beautiful things about the Dharma is that even though its teachings and practices and principles and precepts and lists are quite timeless, that we all channel it differently. And one of the beautiful things about listening to BIPOC and queer people channel the Dharma is that it feels so fresh and so current, so cutting edge in terms of stretching the boundaries of our minds and our hearts. At least that's what's coming up for me as I listen to all of you speak. And, we tend to come from cultures that are collectivistic rather than individualistic, cultures that think about the we rather than the I, just more naturally, more intuitively. And so, one of my favorite quotes, and I have many, but one of my favorite quotes of the Buddha is how the entire universe exists within this fathom-long body. And I think we teach from this perspective in ways that maybe Western convert Buddhist teachers, European white convert Buddhist teachers have taught. And so I just have a deep, deep appreciation. My heart is lighting up as I listen to all of you speak. In my experience in the United States, navigating through predominantly white spiritual spaces, whether it's Buddhist or Hindu or metaphysical, most white people, at least in my circles, have not really raised their awareness about the ways in which they continue perpetuating exclusion because of their own unexamined racism, homophobia, heterosexism, the assumed and entitled privileges, the feelings of denial, shame, guilt, and fragility that arise when these issues are on the table and up for discussion. And then there's a tendency in these spiritual spaces to do this, what we've all heard about in terms of spiritual bypassing. Well, if I'm meditating and praying and being devotional, then I don't have to look at these really difficult things. And then there's just, in my experience, a general devaluation of BIPOC life and relationships, queer life and relationships and experiences. And then there's this tendency too, among, at least from my experience, of many white folks, straight folks in these progressive spiritual spaces that feel that they're doing us a favor by including us, instead of really realizing that in inviting inclusiveness, that it benefits their own humanity and their own evolution, as well as the fact that we know, based on studying, ecosystems in nature, that complexity and diversity always equals more intelligence, more wisdom, right? So they too are benefiting from being inclusive, although that's not often the way it comes across. And this energy can feel quite condescending and patronizing, at least, to this body, mind, heart. And it's exhausting. It's annoying. And would like to see people who are in allyship with us recognize that they too are benefiting. The evolution of their souls, their spirits are benefiting by being inclusive. As far as I know, the Buddha didn't address racism directly, but he did talk about things like, social status and family lineage, class and caste background. And, he basically said that all of our bodies, all of our skin suits and bodies decompose, no matter what our class or caste or, lineage is, right? So it's actually, it's coming from a place of ignorance to disparage others based on some identity group membership and to exalt oneself. Yeah, so there's a tendency, I think, in my experience, for people to encapsulate racial trauma, racial harm, racial woundedness, to not want to look at it. But we must bring the light of awareness to all of these areas of our consciousness. I have served on teachers' councils at the Insight Center, where I've been most active, and I'll share some of the things that we've done to try to support our centers to be more inclusive. One thing is that we make sure that all of our teachers, all of our facilitators have gone through some kind of white awareness, white awake training. And if teachers or facilitators decide that they don't want to do that, then they can move on to a different center where that's not a requirement. And that has happened at the center where I work. Most teachers have gone through this training, but there have been others who have said, I don't want to do it. And they've been asked to leave. Power and leadership positions need to be shared at every level of our organizations. BIPOC and queer folk need to be on the board. They need to be on the Teachers Council. Half of the board and half of the Teachers Council needs to be comprised of BIPOC and queer people. And this is really, it's essential, right? Because our programming, our teaching programming, our funding, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, initiatives, they will all be affected by who's on the board and who's on the Teachers Council. So these are really essential for me, from my perspective. I think meditation centers need to have a radical welcome, and it needs to be in writing, and it needs to be expressed and shared, repeatedly. A welcome statement that denounces all forms of oppression and welcomes, mouth is getting a little dry, and that welcomes people of all identities. There needs to be a statement of value and acknowledgement of past and ongoing harms. And this is something that my center did, created a statement in which they expressed apology and responsibility for the ways in which they may have harmed people in the past and in an ongoing way. There needs to be a hiring of diversity, equity, inclusion consultants who can work with board members and with teachers. And these trainings can't be one-offs. They need to be trainings that are integrated, infused in every aspect of the organization in terms of how homophobia, heterosexism, transphobia, racism might show up. And there needs to be, and this is something that my center has begun to do. I think we're in our very early stages of it, but to create opportunities for people to have these types of discussions with each other. So much, and these discussions need to be embodied, right? Not cerebral or conceptual discussions, but they need to be embodied because so much comes up in the body. Retraction, contraction, heat, tension, gripping, shutting down, numbing, all of these things need to be held. And people don't have a lot of practice holding what arises in the body. And so there needs to be opportunities to have consistent conversations about these issues. And they need to be facilitated with skill in an embodied way. Storytelling is a great way to get people from different backgrounds to begin sharing with one another what it's like being in these bodies, navigating through the world with ease or difficulty based on our positions in terms of privilege or being targeted by oppression. Making spaces that are affinity spaces available to people in a consistent way is key. And then when it comes to marketing, I work for an organization or with an organization that doesn't have very many BIPOC and queer teachers. And as they were trying to make efforts to turn things around and be more inclusive, what I found them doing is creating advertising and marketing that gave the face, their forward face was one in which they might have centered the images of, people of color, but that's not what it looked like in reality. And so making sure that, images, advertising and marketing images really truly reflect what's going on in the membership of the organization. So just being authentic. I know we're almost out of time. I'm aware that it's 9 minutes to the hour, so I think I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you so much, Alisa. That was so inspiring, and I really want to bring in Sibling Chanh Dinh briefly, and then I would love to ask BK to do that song that we talked about before, if you're still happy to do a song or stretching or something, and then open it up to maybe one question from the floor. But I know we can't do everything in the tiny amount of time. I'm just conscious that we haven't heard yet from Sibling Chanh Dinh, and I wonder if you'd like to add something, perhaps briefly.
Thank you, friends, family, siblings. I also aware of the time, and also aware of Joelle and Melanie, especially Joelle. I see you. I see that there has been hand raising, and Melanie, I sense. I wish there was more space today. I don't know if there's a way we can stretch a little. I don't know. What could I possibly share in these few moments?
May I make a suggestion which might help?
Yes.
Here's a suggestion. How about if those who are able to stay on for a bit longer, we extend the space a little bit. I mean, the contributions have just been so precious and valuable and inspiring, and it just feels terrible to stop it. So if those who need to leave on the hour maybe quietly leave, it just feels wrong to suddenly stop it on the hour. So if panelists are happy to stay for a little bit longer, it would be wonderful. It just feels too premature to suddenly stop it. And I'm sorry for interrupting there, but it just felt important to make that. So I'm looking around the panelists. Am I getting an okay to stretch it a little bit? Fantastic. Thank you. Please continue.
Okay. In this moment, oh goodness, listening to everything that's being shared, I feel like I'm with soulmates, body mates, cellular mates, ancestral mates. Yeah, there's this very moment. The complexities, there's so much that has been accruing, or that I have been, I'll say this, jawbreakers. As a child, I ate this candy called jawbreakers. They're these hard candies, and I have been appreciating them as maybe my first Dharma teachers, my first Buddha experience, is that you put it in your mouth and you can't just bite it. You're gonna hurt yourself. The way to enjoy it is you just have to sit with it and let it dissolve in the mouth and enjoy the flavors, the textures, right? For a long time, so I'm putting in context, my first experience of a practice center, Deer Park Monastery, was the people of color retreats back more than maybe 15 years ago with Thai. My first group was the queer BIPOC Dharma sharing family at Deer Park. So my actual first experience in this tradition, beyond the books and the direct connection of teacher and Thai, but in the practice center, was through those retreats. That, unbeknownst to me, those are very, well, clearly we all know now, I know now, those are very, very unique spaces, and we're not representative of what a typical experience at the monastery is and has been. And in our communities, the complications or the complexities, so we are rooted, a Vietnamese rooted tradition. And I respectfully speak of this, knowing that folks are present, have been called here today from all directions and identifications and experiences, and may not identify really with the Plum Village experiences. But the experience of entering space where we can feel the violence of silence and the violence of existing structures. I'm using a bit, maybe strong language. and I know I don't have the tonality of the soft sister right now. There's a line I would like to share if I can find it. I had it earmarked, that has been with me for some while now. And I'm gonna call in our ancestor, Bell Hooks, who I'm so glad sat with Thai for an interview at some times, and I'm grateful for Bell Hooks speaking of Thai in her writings alongside with Paulo Freire, right? So that I feel that kinship, right? That essence that's still alive. So when I feel I might be losing faith because of the violence of the structures, that I'm not getting caught, even though the pain in my body is there. So here Bell Hooks writes, and I like to interchange. They wrote with feminism, but I'm going to interchange that. Right, we're going to play with this. I am often critical of a lifestyle-based Buddhism. I'm often critical of a lifestyle-based Buddhism because I fear that any Buddhist transformational process that seeks to change society is easily co-opted if it is not rooted in a political commitment to a mass-based movement. Within white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, we have already witnessed the commodification of Buddhist thinking, just as we experienced the commodification of Blackness, in ways that make it seem as though one can partake of the good that these movements produced without any commitment to transformative politics and practice. It's from Teaching to Transgress, if anyone is interested, where the roots of that is. I call in Bell Hooks as a teacher because that really has articulated what I've felt for so long too. And I think we all are here for those reasons, right? And even going back, I heard an evocation of the times of the Buddha, and one of the things this is a curiosity and exploration. The Buddha came from privilege, right? And if I go here, let me see. I hope I'm with the greatest respect of our roots, of our origins, right? So practice brings us to, for me, the practice. How can I practice? I was writing to my monastic elders in the last couple of years that, this practice has called me to, continue when I entered, to continue wanting to heal in patriarchy, the violence of patriarchy, misogyny, capitalism, colonization in me and but not just me, right? That's the bodhisattva path. That's not the individual, right? It's not only the personal transformation that Bell Hooks speaks of. But it can't just also be in words or just saying bodhisattva. We say the term bodhisattva so many times. Let us evoke Avalokiteshvara, our trans bodhisattva ancestor, right? And Thai always begins retreats evoking Avalokiteshvara, and we cry together, tears are moved together. How does that carry forth and move on to where individuals meet individuals meet each other, our relationships and the institutions, right? And I so very much appreciate everything that has been sharing and the concreteness of Alisa's experience. I was excited when I thought Mushin would be here because I look to EBMC, the East Bay Meditation Center, for folks. I realize this is global. If you don't know, now you should start to know. Look up East Bay Meditation Center. There are folks and communities that are creating, have been growing because of our need. I like to think of the Plum Village or the Order of Interbeing, or just continuations of Thai without putting these grand, but it's a grand experiment that was born out of necessity, evoking our teacher Thai coming out of war, one of the things that has struck me as a student of Thai is that he would often, I noticed, use the word sovereignty in his teachings, especially to the monastics. The sovereignty. I always thought it fascinating. It wasn't in translation. He would be using this, his choice of words, sovereignty, self-determination, sovereignty, land rights. Our bodies are the land of our ancestors, aren't we? So in these moments, I feel like just letting kind of what calls through is one of the things that really felt like Thai as a soulmate, a kindred spirit, a teacher, was that Thai also, out of necessity and honoring what's calling out in these moments, in his moments back then, created anew, right? While still having it was connected. That's what I appreciate about this movement keeps coming, is with reverence and respect for our origins and roots. And this is something I do struggle with as a non-Vietnamese monastic in a community that's rooted in as Vietnamese heritage, that's alive, right? And Catholic roots, which entered my stream through colonization in a violent way. And yet there's this spirit, the spirit energy that has been longing for community and a spiritual community, and still continues to search for that, knowing that the disconnection is a result of colonization and patriarchy. And I find it fascinating then, this meeting of root Buddhism, be it those who were born into Buddhism as their cultural heritage, and many of us who have come to the well of the Dharma, tasting these spiritual teachings in a way where maybe, at least for some moments, it's not overpowered by or leached into by colonization, right? And yet, then we see that it is in structures. And those contradictions, as I was so excited to learn of Alisa and Joelle and Melanie, and know that Brian BK is here, because the somatic practices, there are so many resources, there are so many things developing, and there are already practices and communities that have been doing this, and they don't need to call it something, because it's intact. The dance and the song is intact, right? So I like that I like that it's framed that it's not just in Buddhism, right? That we're not Buddha-centric. We're not Sangha-centric, right? And that I fully support new creation, right? Rebuild, because in the spirit of like, maybe where does abolition, what relationship does abolition have with beginning anew? Right? What relationship, how do we change structures and institutions and transform, right? Where does the individual and the humanity take greater strength than the structures, the embedded, the calcified stuff that has the momentum of power, history, and really has formed many, I'd say the majority of the education in minds and the conditioning of our minds and bodies. So these are some of the things that I've called out to just be in conversation and communion with everyone as I evoke to be in communion with everyone. And I don't know who's showing up. I feel so good seeing the panelist faces. I don't know who has shown up today, who's listening. I hope that it goes into concrete, to action, to sitting, to being with the uncomfortable, and to start to even sit with bypass. How about we sit with bypass friends? I don't mean we have to right now, But even as a practice, I would like to ask folks who've zoomed in today, even when you hear the word bypassed, what does that? We know, and our bodies are telling us things in those tensions and recoils. I hope that the practice, and I am so inspired. I will stop because I want to hear more. I'm so happy about Melanie, Alisa, Joelle, and BK, and I know that there are a lot more folks out there that we don't know, but who are doing. So I'm with Melanie in sending all this energy, and when I sit and when I breathe, and when I pray, when I light the candles and the incense, and when I'm with my tensions inside, and the discomforts in me, also as someone who's navigating and exploring all of this is so far in my monastic life, but not to be bound by that. I'm with all of you. I'm so grateful and honored to be a part of this conversation and to be in kinship with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much, Sibling Chanh Dinh. And I don't want to silence anyone, and I'm aware that both Joelle, note correct pronunciation, and Melanie had your arms raised. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite both of you to be very brief, if I may ask, and then to just go around with closing comments from each of the other panelists. So I think I'm trying to remember whose arm went up first, whether it was Melanie or Joelle. I think it was Joelle. Okay, I'm being pointed at. Thank you, Melanie. So Joelle, would you like to go next?
Yes, indeed. As BK was speaking, and I began to think back to Thich Nhat Hanh's connection with Martin Luther King and the invitation to speak out about the Vietnam War. So, as I see it, just looking at the participants, there are 108 people here in this moment. So there's a real special invitation which I would like to put out, this LGBTQIA plus month. And that is, all of us have different spheres of influence. What I notice about that relationship there is that Thai spoke to Martin Luther King because of his sphere of influence to do something. So here's the invitation for everybody that's here, all 108 people. This month, find somebody who has a particular sphere of influence in relation to speaking about and actioning something to do with racial and queer inequality. Speak with them, connect with them, to support them, to do something to support people who are facing injustice. I feel like I got a bit wordy there, so let me repeat my invitation. Find somebody who has influence to speak out against racial and queer injustice. I think that will support us in our overall quest for healing.
Beautifully put. How can anyone resist such an important invitation? Thank you so much, Joelle. I'm going to skip across to Melanie now.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's hard to be brief, but I will be. Don't worry. First, just thanking every panelist here. Thank you so much for your words. I leave very encouraged, feeling less alone in this work. The first thing I would like to reflect on is the patriarchy and its influence in our multiple relationships within spiritual communities and beyond. And it's that the patriarchy tackled something specific to basically crumble communities, and that was joy. Enjoyment for the sake of enjoyment. And that is my ask for anyone that wants to be part of something big. Enjoy just for the sake of it. There's no reason why you shouldn't enjoy. That is the first thing that the patriarchy took from us. Enjoyment. And nourish yourself. Because if we're not nourished, there's no giving, there's nothing to give. And that in itself is a basis of our youth activism, joy, love for the earth, love for our communities. That's why we act, because we love each other. And that's it. No the justification. I think this is really important because most of the conversations about race and queerness and like all the branches that has, because it's so intersectional with everything, usually centers a negative voice. So I'm here to tell you, no, this is because we love each other, not because we fear the consequences of the actions that we're doing. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is, please have high expectations when regards of your unlearning. Truly honor those communities that we are reivindicating with our unlearning process. Have high expectations, long-term processes as opposed to short-term. Aim long-term. How long did it take me to unlearn my internalized racism? A long time. It didn't happen from one day to the next, and it's ongoing. How long is it taking me to unlearn my internalized homophobia? A long time. So please, people, aim long term. No easy fix. No tick box exercise, because this is seen everywhere. We see it everywhere. And the last thing is, there are a couple of really good resources that I would like to put out for people, and is the anti-racism courses in the Racial Justice Network. They do amazing work. These anti-racism courses are run by white people, trained by people of color to prevent re-traumatization. And the other Unlearning Racism course, which is really good, is run by no white saviors. Because before we take any action that is based on justice, we need to make sure people understand what that is, from a place that centers the voices of those who have been most impacted. It's not good to go out in the world pretending that we know when we don't. Please make sure to inform yourself fully before you take on something to do in regards of justice, because harm is so easily done because of structures that are around it are so ingrained that it is difficult to really make a difference. So please take some time to do that work well, so that whatever you do has some radical transformative impact. And if you see any activism that is centering decolonization, anti-racism, and anti-capitalist action, that is where you need to go, because that's where the most transformative action is happening. If those words are not there, don't trust it. I'm telling you. And that's me. And also just thank you. I know the fountain's open. I could speak forever. And yeah, lots of love.
Thank you so much, Melanie. It's so brilliant hearing you. I just wish there was more time. I'm going to say, are there any other comments? Is there anyone who feels like a burning desire to say? I can see Alisa raising your hand. Would you like to dive in?
Yeah, thank you. Just want to say that in my spiritual practice across many different traditions, from Zen to insight to shamanism, plant medicine, just want to say that our world is created by individuals. And so our world reflects the hearts and minds of each person in it. And yes, I wholeheartedly agree that we can all participate in our own ways, whatever feels comfortable for us, transforming our institutions, our spaces, places outside of ourselves. And I also know it's true that the place where it all begins is internally. And so I want to ask all of you that if you're seeing hostility in the world, spite in the world, cruelty in the world, harshness in the world, turning inward and seeing where those energies live within you and transform them here first. Because then when we do, our heart expands to hold those energies with love and care and compassion and wisdom. And then when we move out into the world to transform our institutions, we are bringing this wisdom and compassion with us to rebuilding our world, rebuilding our institutions. And so when we say no to racialized violence, transphobia, homophobia, heterosexism, classism, all these forces of oppression, we're actually saying yes to something else. And so focusing on what your yes is it creating refuge for people who have no refuge? Is it creating connection for people who are isolated? Is it acting from a place of courage and love and compassion? Yeah, so just wanting to offer, you a multiplicity of ways to transform the world, inner and outer. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alisa. And we still have over 100 people here. Thank you, everybody, so much for staying on extra time. We're getting many calls. Everybody wants details of every panelist. So the follow-up email will have all of that in there. And we want these events to continue. There's so much to be said. This is just a continuation of the conversation. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of the incredible panelists. It's been so inspiring. It's given me so much hope to hear from you all. And it hasn't quite followed the structure that we had planned. So I apologize that I didn't skillfully weave in a little breather break, but you were also compelling. It was difficult to kind of find a place to pause, so I apologize for any lack of skillfulness anywhere. And I am going to call on beautiful Rishi to take us to the next part. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nazarene, and all the panelists. I feel like sometimes a rising tide can't be guided. And I'm going to wrap up quickly because I know we're over time. I just wanted to say that I think there's this very special joy when I think communities that are not safe in other spaces come together and almost in a kind of disbelief birth these bursts of understanding, safety, connection, and solidarity. And for a moment are no longer alone or misunderstood. And I feel so deeply touched and grateful to have shared this awakening experience together with you. As Melanie powerfully shared, I think it's also can be very exhausting for teachers to share so deeply and with such raw openness about personal and often triggering issues. And as Melanie shared, I think they should be recognized and reimbursed for their time and emotional energy. So we'll be offering the great opportunity to practice dana, which means generosity. So to give an offering of money, 100% of which will be distributed directly to panelists to support them in their amazing work that they're doing, their exhausting and tireless work. So please see the comment section for a link to that, and please share as generously as you can if you have the means only. I also just want to flag up that please watch out for another event on the 20th of March, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which will be with the amazing Professor Anne Glieg and Dr. Caroline Starkey about the rise and role of white awareness affinity groups in racial healing. So there'll be an email if you're subscribed to the Buddhist Across Traditions mailing list. I'd like to invite Jacques to invite the bell once, and I'll give a kind of shortened dedication of merit. to end this beautiful session. Thank you so much. May we all nourish and be nourished by deep love and acceptance. May we awaken to understanding the roots of suffering and injustice and act to transform this suffering into the action of love, compassion, and understanding to heal ourselves, our communities, our planet, and our world. Thank you so much, everyone. This is now the end of the session. I'm really sorry that we didn't get to pose any of the amazing questions that were sent to me. I think it's just an indication that we need another event. So watch this space. And I invite you guys, anyone who wants to just shake it out, because I feel like there's a lot has come up and I don't want to leave you guys out in the world without adequate time to reintegrate. And I'm really sorry we didn't get a chance for BK's shaking and music that I was really looking forward to. So maybe we can have one moment to just breathe and shake, and then we will have another invitation of the bell by Jacques, and we will play you out with some music. So please enjoy and feel free to use the chat, which is now being opened if you'd like to make any comments. And do remember to check out the Dana link to thank deeply and respect the amazing sharings we've experienced today. Thank you, Jack.
I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold you in love. No matter where you go, no matter where you've been, you'll never walk alone. I feel you deep within. I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold you in love. No matter what you feel or what you choose to show, I'm always there for you, and so I want you to know I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold you in love. I walk the path with you. Go slow, dear one, don't hurry. I'll go just like you need to go. There is no need to worry. I am sending you, Lord, to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you, Lord, to hold I am sending you light to